Are you sick and tired of going on every single diet? Are you sick and tired of cutting out carbs, cutting out Oreos, cutting out Pop-Tarts, your favorite foods? What if I told you that you can eat those fun, delicious foods and still reach your health and fitness goals? Would you think I'm insane? You'd probably think I'm insane. All right, but we're gonna prove you wrong today. If you don't know me, my name is Steph, otherwise known as Exo Gingy, and I help women ditch the diet, train hard, and love their bodies. And today I have my friend Zach on here, and we're going to kind of kick diet culture in the butt a little bit. If you don't know Zach, you might know him as the Flexible Dieting Lifestyle on Instagram. And I kind of like to call you the macro master, food porn genius. I don't know, that's my names that I go for you.
I get called another one called a macro magician. So
Ooh, I
that's
like
another
that.
good one.
I
So
really like that. So Zach, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know how you got into the flexible dieting lifestyle.
yeah, so my name's Zach Rushlow. A lot of people follow me on the Flexible Dieting Lifestyle on Instagram. They also might know us from our YouTube channel or also flexibledietinglifestyle.com. So those are the three places people generally find us. And flexible dieting is one of those things that it was a progression for me. I think a lot of people go on this progression. It's you start your first, you understand. Okay, it's the first thing is you have a realization that nutrition is very important. First and foremost, you realize, wow, nutrition is super important. So what do? You find the most popular diet at the time, whichever one comes up on Google, the University of Google first, and you pick that one and you try it. At the time, that was paleo for me. And paleo was the huge craze, but I was an athlete and I tried it. I actually lost a lot of weight. It did the complete opposite of what I needed it to do and needed to fuel my performance. It actually made my performance decline and also tarnished my relationship with food. So what I realized was like, man, like why am I in this binge, restrict, repeat cycle? Why is this happening all the time? And I realized like what was happening was my relationship with food was all or nothing. And I realized I was feeding into my personality and how I am with everything I do. It's all or nothing. I don't like doing little dilly dally and just like, oh no, I like immerse myself in something. So I wanted to figure out the why. Why is this happening? Like I was constantly like, okay, what's going on here? And I realized that there was the quote unquote good foods and the quote unquote bad foods. And the moment that I categorized those in my head, I was having that all or nothing mentality. It was either I was going to be all strict 100% or I was going to be just that YOLO mentality. Like I'm going to be all in whenever I'm cheating. And so it was just this terrible relationship with food. And I would judge people who were not eating 100% clean. And that just led to, it was just wasn't good. And so I was like, I want to understand, okay, why is paleo this big thing? Why is it actually helping people? And I started reading a lot more and learning more about nutrition, reading the actual textbooks. I graduated a degree in economics. So like I was doing all this on the side. And I started just reading nutritional textbooks, understanding the body a lot more. And I came to realize that no matter what, calories in versus calories out determine weight loss or weight gain. And then soon after, I realized that you can actually track your calories by tracking your macros. And I'm like, And then each macro plays an important role in optimizing your performance, your hormone levels, muscle mass, energy levels, etc. I'm like, if I can kill two birds with one stone, let me try tracking my macros.
Right.
And so what that usually leads to for most people is the realization that you can actually fit these foods that you quote unquote cheat with before into your diet. But the all or nothing mentality comes in. You try and fit as much of these lower quality, not so micronutrient dense foods into your diet as much as possible. But then that cycle starts again. I say, I have this amount of carbs and fats left. Let me just bang out all my protein and let's fit as many Pop-Tarts and fit as many donuts and fit as many of these that I can in, and just make sure I hit my protein. And it was like all or nothing mentality. And what happened was ended up being a lot more hungry because I knew these macros I needed in order for me to reach my goals were what I need to hit. And I would either hit them, but go to bed hungry, or I would just binge and say, screw it.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized over time, there's got to be some balance to this. I need to think short and long term with my goals. And I started to see, wow, a lot of the foods that quote unquote were healthy for me are the ones that are actually going to keep me full, and the ones that are actually going to create sustainability in my diet. And the quote unquote cheat foods don't fit as well. So I need to learn how to make them on my own. Mm-hmm. And that's where all my page and everything came from, because I love these foods and I'd love to fit them in every once in a while, but I wanted to be able to have options to be able to fit them in on a daily basis. And so I looked through the University of Google. I couldn't find anything. And or the books that I got, I tried the recipes and they were terrible. Mm-hmm. And I just had to take it in my own hands. So about a year and a half, 2 years ago, I started taking it in my own hands, started sharing it. And that's how we've gotten to the point we are today. It's just solving my own problem. And then enough people were interested in how I was doing it. And so we got better over time. And now we have this big old brand that I could have never even imagined would have been possible.
It's amazing. I love that you share your story and you're so honest, because a lot of women are going to be viewing this, and a lot of us honestly think it's a woman's problem, this dieting thing, and we don't realize. And it's cool to hear a guy's perspective, because you had fitness goals and you're like, all right, what am I going to do? And you went to paleo, and I had a similar experience. I was like, I need to lose weight. What do I do? I went to Google too, and it was like, don't eat carbs, don't eat after 6, and all this stuff. And I'm like, just like you, I'm like, there's got to be a better way. And that's when I, like on Instagram, we were talking about this the other day, I saw everyone doing this, if it fits your macros thing.
Yeah.
People look so damn fit. And I'm like, wait a minute, how are you eating all this? And you look like that. So it's very interesting kind of the process that you go through. You kind of go through a restrictive phase. And like you said, when you restrict, it turns into binging, and it's this whole cycle. And so many women and men are still stuck in it because they don't realize what macros are, calories in versus calories out. They probably don't know how much food they need. They're probably under eating, right? So when you discover your macros and your calorie needs, it's like a whole world opens up. Like, let me tell you,
absolutely.
I did not eat peanut butter for about a year.
God bless you.
And then I discovered macros, and I was like, shit, I can fit a lot of peanut butter into my day. No, but isn't that crazy? So
no, it's unreal.
I was talking to my group yesterday, and I said, what questions do you have about flexible dieting and macros? And one of the top things was, what is the best and most accurate way to calculate your macros? Like, there's calculators online. So what approach do you use maybe for yourself or for clients? What do you think is the most accurate way, or maybe does it take some experimentation to figure that out?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of them. What you need to do is, first off, we need to figure out your calories.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. Then the macros come from your calories. There's the Harris Benedict, which is a good one. I mean, like, we use different ones depending on the individual, and that would be going way too deep for this. Obviously can point everybody, and you can kind of link some stuff below.
Yeah.
But the moral of the story is, you need to find your calories, and the biggest thing is, it's not going to be perfect at first. Mm-hmm. And just knowing that it's going to be close enough. Mm-hmm. And you kind of tweak it from there. So what I like to have people do is, we give them their initial macros based on their whole life. They tell us every facet of their lives, because obviously their current statistics, like, give me an idea of their calories they need to be taken in, but also their non-activity exercise No, they're non-exercise activity thermogenesis. They're NEAT, which is like your lifestyle calories, what you do for a living, you walking from the back of the parking lot to the grocery store, taking the stairs. Are they an active person? That is like the biggest key to success is hacking your life to become more, move more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another big part of it. So that's a huge variable that can go into your maintenance calories. So the biggest one would be figuring out your calories first, and then your protein, carbs, and fats come from that. So I don't want to have everybody taking tactical things.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot track your macros unless you shift your mind.
Right.
So like I could give you exact things for you to hit your macros, but it becomes more psychological than anything.
Yes.
You got to buy into this and understand that there's quote unquote good foods and there's quote unquote bad foods. I don't care. I don't agree with people saying that there's not good or bad,
Mm-hmm.
but we need to understand how they fit.
Mm-hmm.
So understanding that your body has needs, okay? It has a certain amount of protein needs it needs. It has a certain amount of carbs and fats it needs. So we need our fats for hormone production. We need our protein to keep us full. It's actually very satiating. A high protein diet actually helps you from binging because you're full. We need our carbohydrates for energy. Unless you're doing your keto approach for females, keto, you need to stay away from that. It's very, very bad for your thyroid, for females and reproduction and all that kind of stuff. For men, it's perfectly fine, but for women, you guys love carbohydrates. And so this is what happens a lot of times. That's why a lot of girls lose their period, because they get in this restriction cycle and so much activity, and thus you don't have that fuel to keep your thyroid running. And that's where all this craziness happens. Like it's one of those things. Like, I don't know, I wouldn't want to be a female, like, because there's so many different factors. With men, it's easy. Females, like you guys, just menstrual cycle. I mean, there's so many facets, like, to where it becomes so much more psychological.
Oh yeah.
And it's not a straight line as a male. Like, you just got to know that, like, that line is just going to go like this. But as long as it's trending in the right direction, and a lot of times it's monthly, not weekly for females, because your menstrual cycle, it just, like, that's the only thing. I'm just going on all this crazy little tangent because you got to know that it's not going to be perfect. In
And
the moment, yeah, go ahead.
thing, so many women are black and white. It's got to be this. I'm not changing this. I got to stick to it. So how do we overcome that? And like you said, it's all psychological. How to help your clients overcome that black and white, that fear of maybe adjusting macros or increasing food? How do we do that?
It's like it's celebrating the fact that, so for example, I have somebody that's 100% been clean and they could only binge. It's setting a goal once a week where you open a pack of Oreos and you eat one Oreo.
Yes, I love that.
Once a week, just
Yeah.
one day a week, just
Yeah.
one day. And then knowing that, hey, if you want to have another one, you can fit it in tomorrow. And knowing that you're not going to die, you're
Yeah.
going to wake up, you're going to feel perfectly fine,
Yeah.
as long as it's accounted for in your macros. And so that's this one win. Like, literally, it's like with anybody who weighs 400 pounds.
Uh-huh.
It's go on a 10-minute walk today.
Yeah.
Put on your walk that you're going to go 10 minutes, or you're going to take the stairs one time.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen is they win. They win, and then they become addicted, like, oh, I can do this. And then they take two flights of stairs.
Yeah.
And then the momentum is on their side. And so it's just quick wins. It's understanding that, like, you're not going to die, I promise.
Yeah.
Because more times than not, so like whenever you were talking about earlier with the restrictive diets, what happens is people are like, well, I'm super strict. I'm not losing any weight. Like, and they're like, I'm eating 1,000 calories. But what happens when you binge and you eat 4,000 or 5,000 calories?
Mm-hmm.
That no longer becomes a deficit. You're probably back to even. That's why you're not losing any weight.
Right.
So if we can find an approach that gets you closer to a level that you can hit on a daily basis that is actually lower than the average of you going restrict and then binge, you win.
Yes.
And that's where it comes. It's finding that medium that, like, this is enough that satisfies me. I'm not being gluttonous by any means. I'm not overeating,
Right.
but I'm in a place where I can lose weight and reach my goal. And then that's where it's just so psychological. It's finding a way. Hitting your macros is very concrete. We all know what we like that's why I don't want to go over this. Like, we can all find ways to figure out our macros.
Yeah.
But how do you consistently hit them? And how do you understand that psychologically that is where it's all at? Like, we need to believe in what we're doing and understand that our mind's going to play tricks on us, and it's going to say, hey, you're not doing this, hey, da, 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 da. We live in a society where we want to all focus on the negative.
Yeah.
Like, let's focus on the win. Like, let's focus on all the wins. Like, how's your relationship with food today? Oh, it's better. That's so awesome. Did you walk past the pantry and you saw the Oreos there and you didn't even have a craving for them? That's a win.
Yes.
And when you did have cravings for them, you had one and understood that you just wanted to taste it. You didn't want to eat the whole thing. You just wanted to know what it tasted like. And understanding that and being like, okay, what's the diminishing return? If I eat two, it's probably not going to be as good as I ate one.
Right.
And so in order to truly appreciate it, I'm not trying to get it out of my system. I'm just trying to tackle a craving. And so my biggest thing is just focus on listen to the way you're talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Do you say you are a failure if you do something? Or do you see everything as a learning experience and know that you are not perfect and you can be better because of it? That's where the true freedom comes in.
Yes, I love that. So speaking of food freedom, I've been through the counting my macros and calories and all that stuff, MyFitnessPal. How can we live a flexible dieting lifestyle? Maybe we don't want to download MyFitnessPal. Maybe we don't want to track everything. Maybe we know that's an obsession for us, but we still know that it's possible to, have those treats, but maybe it's scary. How do we live that? How do we incorporate that without tracking? Is that possible? Maybe it takes experimentation. Maybe it takes some learning experiences, like you said. But I consider myself an intuitive, flexible dieter, right? Because I think after a while of tracking and understanding portions, I can judge, well, probably a whole container of Oreos isn't gonna be too good today, but one or two is gonna rock my world. So how do you incorporate that without?
Well, that's why, no, yeah, it makes sense. Like, I believe you have to track in order to not track.
Right. So you need
that's the biggest. Yeah, it's education. It's kind of like saying, hey, go do calculus, but you've never even learned calculus before. Okay. You have to have that baseline understanding. So I can't eat intuitively so I can't eat truly intuitively unless I restrict the foods that I'm able to take in. So it takes out any of the higher calorie foods that are very calorically dense, and our satiety doesn't tell us exactly how much food we've really eaten, if that makes sense. So if I eat a bunch of broccoli, I'm going to feel full on a lot of very little calories. But if I eat a bunch of Oreos, I'm probably not going to feel as full, and I've probably eaten 10 times more calories.
Right.
So anything that's where these whole debates come in with processed food with unprocessed foods. It's well, the unprocessed foods just lead us not really to overeat too much. The foods that are refined and processed, those are a lot easier to overeat. So that's where the category of good versus bad comes in. Absolutely. Because one food is just very easy to overeat than others. So understanding what serving sizes are, understanding when you look on a food label, like for Oreos, to understand that one Oreo is 3.5 fat, 10 carb, and 1 protein. What the heck does that mean? So if you have no idea what your needs are, as in your protein, carbs, and fat for the day, you have no idea how that fits.
Right.
And so in order to eat intuitively, in the back of your head, you have an idea of how these things fit. You understand what a serving size is. You understand that about a palm of your hand and protein is about 20 to 30 grams of protein. You just understand serving sizes. You can really eyeball them. So it's the whole idea of give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man how to fish, he eats for a lifetime.
Right.
And so it's tracking now, so you don't have to track the rest of your life. It's a 2 to 3 month learning experience so you never have to track ever again.
I love that you say that because I work with so many women who are like, can't let go of that calorie counting app, right? Where it's an addiction. And I say, do you want to be 90 years old and have that app and still be tracking? I always bring up that question, but I love that you say that. Track for a couple months as a learning experience, so then you no longer have to depend on it. You just trust yourself and you're good with your decision.
Yeah. And if you go into it with that mindset, I tracked for the first time in my whole life with the idea that I'm going to not track in 3 months. If you set that goal, and then you can you play games. Like we have a game where I get somebody, they zero out their scale. They put whatever was on there on top. So say you took your peanut butter.
Yeah.
You put it on top of the scale, you zero it out. And you take it off the scale and you take a spoonful out and you guess how much it is. How much, and then you put it back on the scale and you see how close you were. And in the moment where you can consistently 9 times out of 10 be within 10% of your guess, you're getting very good. And so then you start playing these games all the time, and then you're like, wow, I'm getting pretty good at this. Because all you need to do is be within 10%.
Yeah.
If you're trying to step on stage, that's a whole nother ball game. But most people don't give a crap about that. I personally don't. So that's where it really comes into play, and understanding that like tracking is cool when you have time to track. Like, but if you don't like, you'll like learn how to do it now before all these life stressors comes in. Yeah, like if you have
the night before, I've got to plan everything out and see if it fits. And I mean, yeah, if it's going to work for you for a couple months because you learn and then you're good to go for the rest of your life, I mean, very beneficial. So, that's really, really helpful. And I think that's really going to help a lot of women who are going to watch this, because the worst thing is to be obsessed with numbers and not truly enjoying the experience of eating, because food is awesome. You love food. I love food. Like we shouldn't have to worry about all these numbers. We should just enjoy eating. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, why? I want to know your perspective on why has diet culture become so damn stupid? Like, why are there all these diets that say you cannot eat bread? Bread is the devil, or you can't eat after 6, or like all these crazy things that I hear, and I'm like, where are you getting this? Like, why is it just
money? And
people want the quickest thing. People want results like this week, right? We want to lose 2 pounds by Friday. So
well, diet culture is based on suffering.
Yeah.
So a lot of these diets hammer on taking away something that you quote unquote love. And in the beginning, you feel like you're suffering. And so you're like, yeah, like I'm dieting harder than you. But then when nobody's watching, what happens? They binge.
Right.
And this is a cycle.
Right.
And that's what's struggling. It's like people don't understand. Like if you're 40, 50 pounds overweight, losing weight should be pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
Should be pretty easy. The only time dieting gets hard is when you're low body fat percentage and you're really stepping on stage.
Yeah.
If you're having a hard time getting below 50 pounds overweight, then there's a lot of things that we can really look at to spur more change.
Absolutely.
It's either you're not being real with yourself and you're overeating and you're not telling the person you're working with that you are, or you're just you don't know how to track. You don't know how you're not able to eat intuitively yet, or you're just not moving at all, or there's so many different things that can go into it. Like it's a lot more simple than people make it seem. And understanding that a piece of bread is carbohydrate.
Right.
So literally most bread is 15 to one slice of bread is between 11 and 20 grams of carbs. If you truly understand it, and if it fits into your macros for the day, it's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not bad at all. When people demonize a food, I tell them, if somebody says a food is inherently bad, like literally like bad, and it's going to make you fat, I say run away from that person. Ask them why is it bad for me? Right. And they'll be like, oh, because of it's processed, and it's going to be stored directly as body fat. And it's like, no, like they don't tell you oh, well, it's very easily to overeat. And they don't tell you that the two main factors of weight loss and weight gain and body composition are your calories and macros. And if they don't come back to that point, run.
Right.
Because those are the two tried and true things that in science. Yes, some foods, if I eat bread without a protein. So for example, if I eat bread by itself, like nobody does this. If I eat bread and I take it out of the actual package of the bread and I just eat bread, I might overeat because bread's not that filling. But if I have a sandwich with 2 slices of bread with a big portion of protein on there, and I don't have a ton of mayonnaise or crazy amounts of full fat cheese on there,
Yeah.
or not so lean protein source, I'm gonna be fine. The bread's not what's doing it; it's all the stuff that's in there.
Mm-hmm.
And if I keep it lean around the bread, it's not bad. I know we have so many clients that eat sandwiches on a daily basis and they're perfectly fine.
Yeah.
They just understand how it fits.
It's just so interesting because it's not like we don't know this. We've just become so obsessed with this way of eating, like these habits, that it's very hard to break. So I love your approach of just taking small wins week by week, having that one Oreo, realizing, wow, nothing changed, and creating one step at a time that better relationship with food, because we're not dumb, right? We know that we need a lot of food, but it's just because most of us have dieted for so long that it becomes scary to eat differently. That change is hard because we like our habits. So I love your approach and your very flexible way of teaching and coaching it. So one last thing is, if you could give, I always speak to women because those are my clients, a woman who has been stuck dieting for so long, but maybe she wants to gain muscle, she knows she needs to eat more, but she's so afraid. What is the best one piece of advice that you could give someone who's just struggling to eat more, to be a little bit more flexible in their diet?
So just to get the momentum going, that's more of what you're asking. It's somebody that throughout years has had a very restrictive or terrible, not terrible, I hate the word terrible, but a not so good relationship with food. And they've given into society's world of, if you lift weights, you're going to get bulky and etc. I believe it's all in the balance. And always, the first thing I want to ask them is, why do you think this way?
Right.
Truly, think about where you got this information, where this came from.
Mm-hmm.
How valid were these sources? Did you get it from a magazine? You read it on Google? Like, who told you? Did you see it on Facebook? Who told you this?
Just trying to dig deep into why are we so obsessed with this one way?
Yeah.
Where did it come from? Yeah.
Where did it come from? And then you ask, like, what made you truly believe this? What was the thing that they said that was like, oh, well, this is true?
Right.
Then you have the fuel as a coach yourself to dissect why they think that way.
Yeah.
So, for example, well, because I read on Facebook that bread is bad for me, or if I eat Oreos, this is terrible for me, or if I eat anything that's not paleo, it's so bad for me. But then once they tell you that, you can become the educator.
Absolutely.
You'd be like, well, this is why those diets work. Well, let's use paleo for an example. So many people used it for so long. Why did paleo work? Well, first off, it cuts out all refined carbohydrates. So your cereals, your foods that are quote unquote like a Pop-Tart or Oreo, anything like that. You can't eat anything that the cavemen didn't eat. So your only carbohydrate sources are from whole foods, in the sense of your fruits, your vegetables, pretty much it. So you're eating more protein, which is very satiating as well. So it's going to keep you full. You're eating only fat sources from avocados, nuts, seeds, all that kind of stuff, eggs, things like that from animal sources. So how the heck are you going to overeat? It becomes a lot harder because you're not having those quote unquote trigger foods that are very easy to consume. And so why would that diet work? Well, you're eating more vegetables, you're eating more whole foods, you're eating more protein, you're a lot more full. Thus, you're probably eating the same amount of volume of food, but you're eating a lot less calories.
Less calories.
And that's why that works. And so when it doesn't work is whenever you do go off that diet and you go back to eating what you're doing, and your mind's like, oh, I'm eating the same volume, I'm eating the same amount of food. But in reality, you're eating twice as much calories because you're eating other foods that's why they were off limits, because they're not so macro friendly. They're very calorically dense. And so that's where it becomes intuitively, it's hard to eat that way. It's hard to eat intuitively if you don't have that baseline understanding that your hunger in a modern society is really, 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 really hard to monitor.
Oh, absolutely.
It's hard to eat intuitively. It's very, 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 very hard because it's harder because we have all these foods that are so dense in calories that our hunger doesn't really reflect how many calories we just took in.
Yeah.
So that's where my advice would just be always ask why.
Yeah.
Always ask why.
Yeah.
And always. And this translates to everything in life. Like if somebody tells you something, like piss them off and say why.
Yeah.
Why? And more times than not, they're gonna be like, oh, duh.
Yeah.
Yeah, like challenge anybody. Like, you know what? Like when I talk to my parents and they tell me stuff, I'm like, well, why? And they don't even want to talk to me anymore because like I always question
They
everything.
don't want to explain it because they don't have the information, right?
Yeah, right. Like you're my son. I don't want to have to explain myself to you. I'm like, yeah, you do. Like, yeah, you do.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. So
I love it. I'm a creeper, and I was watching your Instagram story from yesterday, and you were talking about training maybe like 2 or 3 times a week, going hard, and you're still jacked. You haven't gained 300 pounds, right? You because your nutrition is on point. So,
yes.
So because I know you're super busy, you're running a business, you're doing a million things. So many people think it's got to be every day. I've got to work out hard because I've got to burn these calories. But when your nutrition is on point, your body's not really going to change. You're not going to lose muscle mass in a week if you're eating on point, right? So
Yep.
I loved when you explain that to your audience, because it's so true, because we're a culture, we just want to go. We just want, go hard in the gym, go hard in our diets. We're almost overtraining. We're probably overtraining. We're probably still under eating. But the fact that you said that in your Instagram story, I was like, bam, this guy knows it.
Well, it's cool. It's cool in the sense of like people don't understand that like your brain uses a lot of calories. It actually burns a lot of calories. So if you're like doing things that stimulate your brain, you're actually burning some calories. Your skeletal muscle, your organs, your skin, your bones, everything requires. And so more times than not, you're burnt, like majority of your calories are already being burnt regardless if you exercise or not. Exactly. And one thing I need people to understand is exercise doesn't burn as much as you think. I promise it doesn't. And little things that you can do during the day. So like whenever I'm running this business, what do? I'm constantly on the phone or talking with my team or doing something, in every moment that I can be up on my feet and walking around. Or if I have calls, so like I batch calls that I'm not like on a call like this. Like if I'm talking, it's beautiful outside, I'll go walk for an hour and knock out all my calls, or 2 hours, whatever. And I'll just be roaming around with my phone and just talking and knocking things out, but I'm not sitting on my butt. So that's another thing is this miscellaneous calories that actually make you feel good and give you more energy. Because what I've noticed is when I train, if you train, you actually stimulate your hunger a lot more than you actually are calories you're burning. What I've noticed is the fact that if I train, I'm going to actually be more hungry and want to eat more calories than the calories I actually burn. So I'll end up overeating than if I didn't even train.
Right.
So it's really cool. And as a business owner and as somebody that's become part of something that is so much bigger than I could have ever imagined, I need to be available for my team a lot more. So training 2 to 3 times a week, and it's that all or nothing mentality. Like when I'm in there, I'm going to crush it. I'm not going to go and do 30-minute dilly-dally workouts and just get in and get out. That's not me. No. For some people, they love that. Yeah. For me,
you're going hard. No.
I'm hyper focused. Like I wake up with a plan that day, and if I know that I don't have to train. That gives me an extra hour and a half, 2 hours to plan out, and I can just crush. And that's what I focus on. It's just like making sure I just crush whatever I have to do that day. And if I have to work out that day, I will. And if I don't get to my workout, I'm no less of a person.
No.
Like, I'm still a good person. I still believe that I'm perfectly fine. Like, I don't know. I think so much more long term with everything that I'm doing right now. So it's really cool to be able to understand what's truly important. And
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think, the fitness industry is amazing. There's some amazing people, some great people who promote balanced lifestyle and all the sustainability, but it's also become so overflooded that the normal person just thinks they need to do too much, and it's really not benefiting you physically or mentally.
yeah,
It's damaging you more than anything. So I really, really love your approach, and that's why I had to chat with you today, because I love your approach, and I love getting a male's perspective, because a lot of females think it's just a girl's problem. Dieting and all this confusion is just a woman's problem, but guys go through it too, and you went through it, and kind of in looking back, maybe you're glad you went down paleo and realized, hey, now you've got this business. Now you're changing people's lives through your flexible dieting lifestyle. So where could we find your magical recipes? Because we all want the mac and cheese, and we all want, these ice cream sandwiches and cheesecake that I'm seeing. Where can we get this? I'll make sure to.
And so one thing that I didn't think we covered was the whole idea of, okay, so if you want to eat intuitively,
Yeah.
how do you have macro-friendly recipes like this, and how do you fit them in?
Right.
And I remember we talked about this the other day. And it's the idea that, okay, once you track, you understand, then you can actually make recipes like this. But you have to truly understand how these, like, if I write the macros on a recipe, why is it important? Why wouldn't you want to eat the real thing?
Right.
The quote unquote real thing.
Right.
The calorically dense one. What's the difference? Well, the difference is mine has a fourth of the macros, has more protein, and you can eat fourth the price of one. That's without sacrificing the taste. That's where it comes in. And so how do you fit that in intuitively if you're not tracking? Well, you track it the first time, maybe track it the second time. But after you've made it a couple times, you know how it fits. So in reality, if you know, okay, this recipe I've already made it a few times, I can eyeball ingredients. I don't really have to track it. This recipe it has 20 grams of carbs, 30 grams of protein, 5 grams of fat. Okay, I know how that fits into my day. This might be a small meal or a snack, depending on what your macros look like. Boom. And so that's the beauty of it. Once you track something once, maybe twice, you have an idea. If you go into it with the idea, I want to learn how to do this to where I don't have to track it, then it takes care of itself.
I love that you say that. Go into tracking with the idea that you're learning to not track, essentially, right? Don't go into tracking thinking this is it. I'm going to track forever, because you learn a lot tracking.
Yeah, and it's just like being a business owner. You should build a business like you're not there. So, for example, I want to create a turnkey operation that doesn't necessarily rely on me. Obviously, as the face of a brand, it does. But with going into it with the idea that, like, I could fall off the face of the earth for a year and we would be fine.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? That's the goal that I'm looking for, is doing that. So that's the idea with, like, if you go into it tracking your macros and doing it with the idea that the end in mind on what you're trying to do, that's the biggest thing.
I love that approach. I love it. I love that approach, because so many people think it's got to be like, well, if I'm tracking now, it's got to track forever. But when you go into it thinking, no, it's just temporary, and then I'm going to know what to do, you feel confident. That is amazing. Going in with that mindset is key. So awesome. I had fun chatting about it. I love chatting about food. So anytime you want to do this again.
It was fun. Yeah, it's a good chat. Like, you asked really good questions. And to answer your question, everybody can find all of our recipes. I would say just the first thing is just go to the Instagram page. I'm not going to say go anywhere else. Just go to the Instagram page. You'll see more of what we're about. Click on the story, watch the story, just hang out there, and then everything kind of funnels from there.
I wish you could just, like, touch a picture and it appear like in your palm, and because I do not like to cook. So, oh, this was another thing. Are these difficult recipes? Could I make this? Because I hate
Absolutely. Every recipe I make is not whether I can make it. Is whether anybody else can make it. That's the biggest thing is what, and I think of ingredients.
Right.
Can you get this ingredient at your local grocery store? If not, I'm not going to use it.
Yeah, nothing crazy. Yeah, I'm not going to spend hours in the kitchen trying to figure this out. Yeah, okay, good.
No.
That's what I figured, because I mean, come on, yeah.
No,
Awesome.
we don't have time for that.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And I will link your Instagram below when I post this video so everyone can check it out and check out all of the delicious foods. And if they're into it, they're gonna go get your guide because
absolutely. If anybody, so for example, if anybody comes from Steph's group, you're gonna use the code Steph, and that'll give you 15% off anything you want. And that'll be awesome. And so if you use that code, shoot me a DM on Instagram, let me know, and I would like to say hi personally and thank you.
Thank you for offering that to us. You are the best.
Of course.
All right. So we are going to cut off here. I hope you guys learned a lot. And if you have any questions, comment them below and I will answer them. All right. See you guys later.